OpenAI was founded with one explicit goal: to ensure that artificial general intelligence AI that matches or exceeds human capability across virtually any task benefits all of humanity. Not a corporation, not a government, not a small group of investors, all of humanity. That was the mission. Written down, published publicly, repeated constantly. So here's the question this episode asks. How did the organization founded to prevent any single entity from controlling AI end up majority controlled by one of the largest corporations on Earth? And did the people who built it understand what they were agreeing to when they signed? In the first 3 episodes of this series, we built a picture of how the AI power structure formed. We saw how NVIDIA, Microsoft, and OpenAI positioned themselves at the hardware, infrastructure, and model layers of AI simultaneously. We saw how NVIDIA's software platform created a lock-in that competitors couldn't break. And we ended episode 3 with a question. OpenAI, a nonprofit that explicitly set out to prevent AI concentration, accepted $1 billion investment from Microsoft. This episode is the full story of that decision. What led to it, what was agreed, and what it may have cost. To understand why the Microsoft deal matters, you need to understand what OpenAI originally was. In 2015, a group of prominent technologists including Elon Musk and Sam Altman founded OpenAI as a nonprofit research laboratory. The founding logic was unusual and worth understanding carefully. They believed that artificial general intelligence was likely to be developed within decades. They believed it would be the most transformative and potentially dangerous technology ever created. And they believed that if it was developed inside a for-profit corporation optimizing for shareholder returns rather than human welfare, the consequences could be catastrophic. So they built something different, a nonprofit with no shareholders, with a stated commitment to share its research openly with the world. The entire structure was designed around a single principle. No single entity should control this technology. But there was a problem built into the founding structure from the beginning. Building frontier AI is extraordinarily expensive. As OpenAI's models grew more powerful, the compute costs grew with them faster than any nonprofit fundraising model could keep pace with. By 2019, OpenAI's leadership faced a stark reality. To remain competitive with well-funded corporate AI labs at Google, DeepMind, and elsewhere, they needed capital on a scale that nonprofits simply don't have access to. The options were limited: slow down research and fall behind, find a major donor willing to write enormous checks with no return, or restructure the organization to accept investment. They chose the third option, and in doing so, they created something that had never existed before. A capped profit company nested inside the nonprofit designed to attract investors while theoretically preserving the original mission. In 2019, OpenAI created a new structure it called a capped profit company. The idea was this: investors could receive returns, but those returns were capped at 100 times their investment. Beyond that cap, all profits would flow back to the nonprofit parent and, ultimately, to humanity. On paper, it was an elegant solution. OpenAI could raise the capital it needed to compete. Investors could make significant returns, and the mission would still be protected by the structure. But here's what most coverage of this deal missed. A 100 times return cap sounds restrictive, until you realize that if OpenAI became as valuable as its most optimistic projections suggest, a 100 times the early investment could be worth tens of billions of dollars. The cap that was designed to limit profit was large enough to make investors extraordinarily wealthy, which raised a question nobody asked loudly enough at the time. When the financial incentives are that large, does the structure actually protect the mission? In 2019, Microsoft made its first investment in OpenAI, $1 billion. In 2021, it invested again. And in January 2023, it announced a multi-year investment reported to be approximately $10 billion. In total, Microsoft committed somewhere between $10 and $13 billion to OpenAI. In exchange, it received something more valuable than a financial return. It received exclusive cloud rights. Every OpenAI model, GPT-4, DALL-E, every future system would run on Microsoft's Azure cloud infrastructure. Not Amazon, not Google, Microsoft. It received early access to OpenAI's most powerful models for integration into its own products. Microsoft Word, Excel, Outlook, Teams, GitHub, Bing. An AI layer dropped directly into the software that hundreds of millions of people use every day, and it received a reported 49% share of OpenAI's profits up to the cap. Think about what that means in aggregate. Microsoft didn't just invest in an AI company. It embedded that AI company's technology into its entire product ecosystem and locked every one of OpenAI's future models onto its own cloud platform. For 4 years, the deal held together quietly. Then, in November 2023, something happened that briefly pulled back the curtain on the tension at the center of OpenAI. OpenAI's board fired Sam Altman, the CEO who had architected the Microsoft partnership and led the organization's commercial expansion. The stated reason was vague, a lack of candor with the board. What followed was extraordinary. Within 48 hours, nearly every OpenAI employee signed a letter threatening to resign and follow Altman to Microsoft, which had already offered him a position leading a new AI research division. The board reversed its decision. Altman returned as CEO within 5 days. And then something quietly significant happened. The board was restructured. The members who had voted to fire Altman were replaced. And the nonprofit governance structure that was supposed to serve as the ultimate check on OpenAI's commercial direction was significantly weakened. The episode revealed something important. By 2023, OpenAI's commercial momentum and its deep financial entanglement with Microsoft had become more powerful than its own governance structure. Here's where we need to be precise about what this does and doesn't mean. None of what we've described is illegal. None of it is necessarily the result of bad intentions. The people at OpenAI and Microsoft are not villains. What this is a structural problem. OpenAI was designed to be governed by a mission, but missions don't pay server bills. Capital does. And the organization that needed capital to survive gradually became shaped by the demands of the capital it accepted. Its research, once published, openly became increasingly proprietary. Its governance, once controlled entirely by mission-focused board members, became entangled with commercial interests. And the nonprofit that was supposed to own and direct the for-profit entity found itself, in practice, with diminishing authority over the direction of the organization. This is not a conspiracy. It's something more mundane and more important. It's what happens when the financial structure of an organization is in tension with its stated purpose and the financial structure wins. Step back and look at what is actually formed. The most capable AI models in public deployment were built by an organization that was explicitly designed to prevent concentration of AI power. Those models run exclusively on the cloud infrastructure of one corporation. That corporation holds a reported 49% of the profits. It has embedded those models into software used by hundreds of millions of people worldwide. And the governance structure, designed to ensure that technology serves humanity rather than shareholders, has been, in practice, outweighed by commercial momentum. Whether you think this is a problem depends on whether you trust the people running these organizations. But the founders of OpenAI built a structure that was designed to not require that trust. Because they understood something important when they started. The value of a governance structure isn't what it does when everything is going well. It's what it does when interests conflict. And in November 2023, we saw what it did. So here's where the Power Structure series has arrived after 4 episodes. The hardware layer controlled by one company, protected by a software moat that took 15 years to build. The model layer built by an organization founded to prevent concentration, now deeply embedded inside a single corporation. The infrastructure layer, a 3-way competition that, in practice, one company currently leads in AI workloads. Each layer reinforces the others, and together, they form something that no single person planned, no government approved, and no regulation currently governs. A concentration of capability over the most powerful technology in history. Built legally, built openly, built in plain sight. And the question that sits underneath all of it, the question this series is going to spend several more episodes exploring, is this: who, if anyone, is watching? Technology companies aren't the only institutions that have accumulated this kind of structural power. There is another system older, less visible, and in some ways more consequential, that shapes the daily economic lives of every person on Earth. It determines the price of borrowing money. It influences whether economies grow or contract. It can move global markets with a single sentence. And it operates almost entirely outside of democratic accountability. It's called central banking. And the institution at the center of INT, the Federal Reserve, may be the single most powerful financial entity in human history. Understanding how it works, who controls it, and what it actually does is the subject of Episode 5.